My first baby was 6 days old, still too new to lift her own head, when my husband sat on the edge of our bed in the blue of the evening and asked me, so gently, when I thought we might try for the next. I gave him 2 words back. Only 2, so small I could hold them both inside a single breath. And those 2 words cost me more, in the long year that came after, than the birth itself had cost my body on the hardest night of its life. And it was not my husband who made me pay for them. I want to tell you about those 6 days, and the 2 words I gave back on the 7th evening. It is only a tired woman and a new baby, and a kind question in a dim room, and it was the evening I first understood that my body had never once been thought to be mine. I still believed my body was given back to me the moment they laid the baby in my arms. Before I go on, stay a moment and sit with me. And down in the comments, tell me one small thing, for I read everyone. Who was it that decided how soon was soon enough, after your body had done the very hardest work it will ever be asked to do? I ask that of every woman who finds this window for the first time. There is a little bell near this window too, and if you ring it, I will know to call you back the next evening I have something to tell. For the things I say here are the things we are never permitted to say aloud among our own. Most women go very quiet when I ask them that, and then a tired knowing comes into their faces, because nearly every one of us was counted upon for the next thing before we had so much as healed from the last. Here is what a wife's body is quietly understood to be for, among a plain people, and I say it without heat, only plainly. It is for the household's numbers. A farm needs hands, and the church needs children, and a wife is the ground all of it is grown in, and the ground is not asked whether it is tired. No one ever wrote that rule on a wall. No one had to. It was assumed the way the weather is assumed, and a thing assumed that deeply is far harder to see than a thing written down. You cannot point at it. You can only feel it press. And a body thought to be only ground is granted no season of its own. It is counted ready again the moment it is cleared, the way a field is turned as soon as the harvest is off it, no one asking the field whether it has anything left to give. That is how deep the water runs. A woman can be 6 days out from the hardest night of her life and still feel, in her own bones, that to ask for rest is to fail at the one thing she was made for. I have written all of this down, everything I was never able to say aloud in our district, in a small book. It is called A Quiet and Faithful Home, and if you look, there is a little code resting on your screen just now that you may scan, and it will open the book to you. I would like you to have it as my gift, freely, and let it be a comfort to you the way the writing of it was a comfort to me. There is no hurry about it at all. It will keep. But please do not go yet, for I have not told you yet what the 2 words were, nor what my husband did when I said them, nor which door in the whole district closed so softly against me that I never once heard it shut, until I was already standing on the wrong side of it. I still believed my body was given back to me the moment they laid the baby in my arms. I was only 6 days into learning otherwise. Let me tell you about my husband, and I will call him Gideon, for that was not his name. I want to set it down plainly and early that Gideon was not a cruel man. He was gentle with me through the birthing and gentler after, and when he asked me his question on that 6th evening, he was not making a demand of me. He asked the way a man asks about the spring planting, as a natural and ordinary thing, the next turn of a wheel that had only ever turned the one way in all the life he had seen. His own mother had borne 11, his grandmother 14. To Gideon, a marriage simply went on having children the way a creek goes on running, and it would no more have occurred to him to ask whether I wished it than to ask the creek. That is not cruelty. It is something quieter and far harder to name, and much harder still to answer. So on that 6th evening he asked, "When do you think?" And I looked down at the small sleeping face in the crook of my arm, and I felt the whole of my body still aching from the making of it. And I said the 2 words. I said, "Not yet." That was all of it. Not yet. I gave no argument with them, for I had none ready, only the plain, deep knowing of a body that had just been to the far edge of itself and back, and needed a season to become its own again. And Gideon did not grow angry. He was quiet a moment, and then he said only, "Well," and he rose, and he took up the lamp, and something in the room went cool that had not been cool before. The coolness never became anger, not that night, nor any night after. It became a kind of careful distance, a politeness where there had been warmth, the way a man is polite to a neighbor he is no longer quite sure of, and it might have stayed a small thing between the two of us, and mended the way most small things mend, except that nothing in a plain district stays between two people. Word of a wife who has said not yet moves the way wood smoke moves, without anyone seeming to carry it. A week or so on, I was well enough to take my place at the quilting frame again, and the bishop's wife sat down across from me. She was not a hard woman. She had a soft, tired face, and had buried 2 of her own babies in the little plot behind the meeting house, and she said to me, kindly, over the stitching, that a young wife did well to remember that the church is only ever as strong as its next generation, that our numbers are how we keep the faith breathing in a world that would gladly swallow it whole. She said it gently, the way you would remind a girl to carry a shawl against the weather, and I understood, sitting there with the needle in my hand, that the thing pressing down on me was not my husband. It was not even the bishop. It was the women. It was the whole soft circle of women, every one of whom had been pressed the very same way at my age, now closing gently around the next girl in her turn. That is the part no one warns you of. Often it is not the men who hold the line, it is the women who have already paid, keeping the account even, and then, so slowly that I could not name the day it began, the circle grew smaller around me. When the next young wife's time drew near, and the women gathered as they always do to sit with her, and ready the linens and speak the low encouragements that carry a frightened girl through her hardest hour, I was not sent for. Once, I would have been among the first sent for. It was never announced. No one ever told me I had been set outside. I simply was not fetched, and then was not fetched again, until I understood that I had been quietly moved to the edge of the very thing I had believed I belonged to most, the circle of women who tend one another through the one work only women can do. And the feeling that rose up in me then was not grief, exactly, and it was not anger. It was cold, and it was low, and it was still, and I would carry it a long time before I had any word for it at all. But I have not told you yet about the old midwife, and what she said to me on a spring morning when that cold thing in me had gone so quiet, I had near forgotten it still had a voice. For the plain words she gave me undid something that a whole year of that silence had set hard, and I have not been the same woman since. There was an old midwife in our district, and I will call her Miriam, though that was not her name either. She had caught more babies in her 2 hands than anyone could rightly count, 40 years of them, and she had also sat up with the mothers who did not rise again from their beds, and washed and readied more than one young woman who had been asked to carry another too soon after the last, and had not the strength left in her to do it and live. She had buried some of the very women the circle was so anxious to keep filling. She came by one spring morning to see my baby, and she watched me a while with her old sharp eyes, the way she must have watched 100 girls before me, and then she took my hand in both of hers, hands like dried creek wood, and she said the plain thing that not one soul in all that district of good people had thought to say to me. She said, "Child, a body is not a field, and it does not owe anyone a harvest." She said, "The Lord who made you also made the season a body needs to mend itself, and he did not make that season by accident, nor as a weakness, nor as a sin to be prayed off you." She said, "No rule of ours ever truly said a woman must be emptied again before she has been filled back up. It was only ever assumed, and a thing that is only assumed is a thing you are allowed to set down." And she looked at me steadily, and she said, "You did not do a wrong thing when you said not yet. You said a true thing." There is all the difference in the world between those two, and I am only sorry you had to learn it out here on the cold edge, where they set the ones who say true things too soon. And I understood, holding that old woman's hand, that my body had been given back to me the moment they laid my baby in my arms, that it had been mine the whole while, and the one thing never told me was that I was allowed to know it. Now I must be careful here, the same careful I am always careful, for it would be an easy thing to lay all of this at one man's door, and there is no single door to lay it at. Gideon asked his gentle question because his own father had asked it before him, and not one of them had ever once imagined a marriage that ran any other way. The bishop's wife pressed me over the quilting frame because she had been pressed the same way at my age, and it is a hard thing to watch a young woman keep what you yourself were made to surrender. It is not any one soul's sin. It is the water we were all of us born swimming in, a long line of good and tired people handing down a beautiful and dangerous idea, that a woman's worth is counted in the cradle, and her body belongs to the district before ever it belongs to her, and a fish cannot hate the water. That is the very hardest kind of wrong there is to name. So this is what I do now, and it is a small thing, and it is the largest thing I know how to hand anyone. When a young wife who has just come through her time stands near me, pale and stitched together, and already being asked when the next one will come, I lean in close, where no bishop's wife can hear, and I tell her the thing old Miriam told me. I say, your body is not a field, and it owes no one a harvest. You are allowed the season the Lord himself built into you for mending. Your not yet is not a hardness in you. It is your body telling the truth, and you are allowed to say the truth it tells you. I have watched the heavens fail to fall when a young wife says it, a good many times now. And to you, whoever you are, wherever this quiet finds you tonight, I want to say 3 things before I go. If you are a woman who was asked for the next thing before you had healed from the last, who gave your body everything it had and were met not with rest, but with the question of when you would give again, I see you, and it was not greed in you to want a season to mend. It was wisdom, and they had no word for your wisdom, so they called it hardness. If you are a woman who has felt a circle you once belonged to grow quietly smaller around you, who was never told she had been set outside but simply stopped being fetched, I see you too, and the cold you felt was real, and you did not imagine it, and you were not wrong to feel it. And if you are a young wife only now learning that your body was spoken for before you had any say in it at all, hear me most of all. You are allowed to know that it is yours. You are allowed the season to mend. Say your true not yet gently, and the once, and let the heavens do as they will. I have watched them hold. I wish someone had told me sooner, in those 6 days, that the ache still in my body was not a debt I owed to anyone, and that the coolness that came when I said not yet was never my failing, but theirs. No one told me. I learned it out on the cold edge of the circle, from an old woman with creekwood hands, a full year too late to be spared the learning. And so I have become the woman who tells the young ones sooner, while the telling can still be a comfort, and not just a name for a grief already carried home. Tell me in the comments, so the other women will know they are not the only one. Who was it that decided how soon was soon enough for you, after your body had done the hardest work it will ever do? I read everyone, and I answer where I can. And the little book, A Quiet and Faithful Home, is waiting for you still, in the pinned comment and in the code there on your screen, my gift, whenever you would like it. Ring the little bell before you go, so I will know to call you back and stay a while near this window. Sit at this window with me again. There is always more of the story than one evening can hold.